Today, I'll be pulling shots with a CO2 canister and a bicycle pump on one of the tiniest semi-automatic espresso machines, and I also get very pissed off with an O-ring. Let's get into it. We're back. After a bit of a break, we've moved cities, we have a bigger and nicer studio now, and we're super excited for the content that we have lined up. We also launched a brand new version of Sophie, and batch 1 sold out in like a week. Use the link in the description below to get notified when we open pre-orders for batch 2. And lastly, if you're in India, we have a curated coffee subscription service with some of the best roasters in the country, so definitely check that out if you're interested. Now, before we get started, this product was sent to us by MAESPRESSO. I think that's how it's pronounced. No money exchange hands. They've had no say in what we've put in this video, and they don't get to watch it before any of you do. And as always, a huge thanks to Benki Brewing Tools for helping with all of the logistics. Okay, if any of you have heard of or even used a device called the MAESPRESSO Twist, then let me know in the comments below. That was probably and still is the smallest espresso machine that isn't manual, and it was way ahead of its time. It's basically a portafilter with a nitrogen cartridge attached to it. The company went out of business, I think, around 10 years ago, and it has since gained cult status amongst the coffee community. Fast forward to today, and I have here the MAESPRESSO 58 Pro, a tiny espresso machine that works very similarly to the Twist. It builds pressure using either a bicycle pump or a CO2 cartridge, and I'll say this up front, I love this thing, but I'm quite disappointed with the latest update they've made to it. But before I dive into how this thing works and if it's any good, let's first look at aesthetics. So when it comes to design, what this product lacks in terms of refinement, it kind of makes up for by being really interesting to look at. It's got this industrial vibe to it with the exposed fittings and gauges, almost like it belongs in a factory. There are parts of it like the group head, which seem very well thought out and well designed. And then there's this pump attachment contraption that looks like it was just cobbled together. The updated portafilter now has this bottom section. Not a fan. I feel like the previous one looked cleaner. The knurl grip looks cool, and you even have this really nice WDT hidden inside. The frame is functional but a bit crude, and the silicone mat / drip tray is quite nice. And lastly, the CO2 cartridge tucks away neatly behind the stand, but the bike pump is a little awkward and clunky once attached. So overall, while this thing isn't winning any Red Dot Design Awards anytime soon, it has a certain charm to it that's really grown on me. Now, when it comes to build quality, if I had to summarize it into one word, it would be excellent. I was shocked when I first unboxed it. Everything is metal, and I mean everything, other than the O-rings and the silicone basket / shower screen, which I don't love. It would have been nice to have an all-metal brew path, but this thing is built like a tank. Check out this tamper. Again, all metal, really well made, and it actually fits the basket snug as opposed to most other stock ones. The only flimsy part is this puck screen. There's less plastic here than you'll find in some machines that cost thousands of dollars. I mean, this thing is tiny and it weighs 2.4 kilos. I would happily use it if I couldn't find a hammer. So yeah, if you buy the MAESPRESSO, I don't think you need to worry about it breaking. Ever. Okay, on to the fun stuff. How does one use this thing, and is it any good? So let's assemble it from scratch, pull a shot, and then I'll tell you what I like, what I don't, and how I think you can get the best out of this machine. Assembly is super simple until you get to the portafilter. Place the group head on the stand and fit the large black O-ring around the bottom. Then get the pump connection assembly, pull back the knurl grip, and fit it onto the inlet on the group head. I'll explain the connections on here in a minute. Optionally, you can unscrew this inlet and insert a filter if you're using the bike pump and you're concerned about any contaminants. These filters need to be changed every month. Then attach a CO2 cartridge or a pump, put the silicone mat in place, and all you need to do now is lock in the portafilter. Now hang on, don't get too excited. That was up until they went and changed the design. Now before we get into this rant, let's quickly look at the pump attachment here. This basically has one inlet for the pump and another for the cartridge. The cartridge needs to have 3/8" threads with a count of 24, and I'm using a 16-gram cartridge. Now one thing I forgot to check was how many shots I get per cartridge. I'm currently 6 shots in on this one and just under 1000 psi, so I'll keep a track of it and be sure to add that information in the pinned comment below. The moment you screw the cartridge on tight, you'll see this little gauge shoot past 1000 psi, and is what you'll use to keep track of how much juice you have left. Just make sure it's on tight and there's no hissing sound. The button on this side releases the pressure and stops the shot, and this outlet here attaches to the group head. Okay, back to the rant. So firstly, let me show you the old portafilter. Yep, clean, single piece, and it worked really well. So you may be wondering why the hell they went and changed it. So apparently this version is not structurally sound and is actually unsafe to use at these high pressures. So I am glad that they decided to go back to the drawing board and fix it. The problem is the solution they came up with has really messed with the user experience. What was once easy and a pleasure to use is now a bit of a pain in the ass. While the new design with the removable bottom and swappable filters does theoretically make the device more versatile, and the two different filters are pretty interesting to play around with, the UX has definitely taken a hit. The single biggest frustration I have with the new design is the O-ring, which seems more incapable of staying in one place than a toddler. It's so infuriating to tighten the bottom and have this O-ring pop out of place. A method that works for me, well, most of the time, is to keep checking and push the O-ring back in as you tighten. So with a little bit of practice, a lot of practice, you should have a respectable success rate of around 37%. Not a fun experience, but it's the least frustrating way that I found to get this assembled without any leaks. Oh, I hate this O-ring. I really wish they'd found a way to make the old design work. Anyway, I'll stop complaining, because once you do have it set right and you aren't getting any leaks, life suddenly becomes a whole lot more enjoyable. Now that we're all set up, let's make some coffee. It's super simple, to be honest. First, figure out a way to place the portafilter on the kettle so it can preheat. It's a big chunk of metal, so this is really important, especially if you're brewing lighter roasts. Then grind 16 to 18 grams of coffee and do your go-to puck prep, then tamp. Now you can dose lower to be able to add more water and pull longer ratios, but you're likely going to deal with a lot more channeling with the reduction in bed depth. The deep basket does make it a little challenging to ensure a level tamp, but the fact that the tamper fits so snug means that it can't really tilt too much anyway. Next, place the puck screen and the silicone basket in, fill it up with hot water, lock it in, and you're ready to brew. I will say this though, moving a vessel brimming with boiling hot water and trying to position and lock it into the group head without scalding yourself is quite a lovely experience. Not nerve-wracking at all. This is something that I disliked about the robot too. With light roast, it's even worse because you want to be quick as you have a large open surface area on top that's rapidly losing heat. Also, the tank capacity is quite small, so you can only do a maximum ratio of around 1:3. Place your scales and cup below the portafilter and you're ready to pull your shot. If you're using CO2, then slowly open the valve until you start building pressure, which you'll see on the gauge on top of the group head. I like to get up to around 3 bars of pressure and then shut the valve to pre-infuse. Based on how quickly I start seeing drops, I'll decide when to move to the infusion stage. Then open up the valve until your pressure gauge reads 9 bars. At this point, you can slowly adjust the valve to maintain 9 bars. And when you're around 2/3 way to your target output, shut it off and you'll have a gradual decline in pressure. Then once you hit the desired yield, press the button to depressurize the system and stop the shot. That's it. Pulling a silent shot without any manual effort is such a rush. I've pulled so many shots with this thing and it still hasn't gotten old. It's such a contrast to the delightful music that you get from the bicycle pump. Yes, this thing is obnoxiously loud but works very similarly to the cartridge. Although you don't have as much fine control because you have to control the pressure by turning the pump on and off. But here again, just shutting the pump off once you hit 9 bars will allow you to continue the shot with a gentle ramp down in pressure, and you can use the same button to stop the shot. In fact, setting the pump to 9 bars will cause it to auto shut off when it reaches that pressure. As you can see, you have a lot of control with this machine and you can play around with various pressure profiles. I mean, this shot is delicious and honestly, I had a lot of fun pulling it. If you ignore the faff when setting up the portafilter, the workflow on this machine, especially with the cartridge, is pretty great. The only thing I miss having is a heating element. I just hate preheating. Cleanup again was simple. The new design has made it frustrating. Unlock the portafilter, pour any remaining water out, pull out the puck screen and the silicone basket, then knock out the puck. You can then wipe it down or rinse it out. The issue now is that grounds get stuck to the O-ring, sometimes you get leaks into the threading, and lastly, the fact that you have 2 layers at the bottom means that you can never quite get it bone dry. Anyway, let's look at the competition, the price, and then I'll tell you if I would recommend this product or not. In terms of competition, you have some of the lower models in the Flare lineup like the Pro 2, the Robot, the Presso, and a few other manual machines. It shares some of the cons like needing to be preheated and not having any steam capabilities, but where the MAESPRESSO 58 comes out ahead is the lack of physical effort required, the ease of use after assembling the portafilter, that is, and the build quality. I love the Pico Presso, but it's hard to be super precise with the pump style pressure delivery. The gauge is an additional expense and it's got a lot of plastic. The flares are great, but there's a lot more faffing involved with having to preheat multiple parts. The overall workflow is a little more clunky and it's definitely a bit of a workout. So yeah, at $399 US dollars, even with that damn O-ring, I think the MAESPRESSO 58 is a really compelling brewer. The Kickstarter prices go as low as $209, which is nuts considering what this machine can do. The pump is optional but a one-time cost as opposed to having to regularly buy CO2 cartridges. So yeah, I really like this product. I do. It's got all of the cool features of a good manual machine, but also has a pump. Even though I complained a lot, once I have it assembled and start using it, it just puts a smile on my face. It's so simple to use, especially with the CO2, and you can do some legit pressure profiling. It's also so tiny that I can carry it around with me and set up anywhere, so I love what this company has built. My interactions with them have been good, and they seem pretty receptive to feedback, so I'll definitely keep using this machine, but also patiently wait for the next version that hopefully banishes the O-ring. And on that note, I think it's time we wrap this one up. All the relevant links to this product are in the description below. None of them are affiliate links because I think that does add inherent bias. So if you choose to buy this, we make nothing. But now I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this product? Do you plan to back it on Kickstarter? And is there anything that I missed that you'd like to know? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching and brew aram se.